Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
The album review show, longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. Let's just cut straight to the chase. This is probably the most anticipated album of 2022. Not only because of the band being the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but because the Red Hot Chili Peppers are getting back together with longtime guitarist John Frusciante. And here we are with the brand new one, Unlimited Love.
I can't believe it. We've talked about how much John has influenced Red Hot Chili Peppers and the overall sound when we revisited Californication a few years ago to celebrate its 20th anniversary. I literally remember the day that they suddenly announced that they were parting ways with Josh and bringing John back in. I was just like, holy crap, he's back. Oh my God. For so many people, myself included, for John to come back a second time, it just seemed so improbable. Like, it was so devastating after Stadium Arcadium, which we, back in a previous episode of If You Have to Pick Three, named one of the best albums of 2006. And frankly, it's probably one of the best double albums, dare we say, too. Literally, for him to leave shortly after such a great and successful album like that, it just seemed so shocking. And it just didn't seem like the band would ever even consider. I mean, of course they would miss him, but who would have thought they'd ever find a way to get him back into the band? And here we are. And it kind of stinks that the pandemic made us wait a little bit longer to see them live and to also hear new music from them. But finally, here we are about to review a new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, also a double album, but also with John Frusciante, and also with Rick Rubin back producing it as well. It's, if you want to talk about the classic Red Hot Chili Peppers team, it really is Flea, Anthony, Chad, John, and Rick Rubin, the honorary fifth member, who really helped produce some of their best music, dare I say. With that said, before we really go into it too much, because I know, Matt, if you're like me, you probably have a lot of thoughts on this album.
Yes.
And it's hard not to, especially when it's a band that, it's one of my personal favorites. I won't speak for you on that one, Matt, but I definitely have a lot of thoughts on it. But before we get too deep into it, a real big special shout out to Lucky13 Beard Co.
If you haven't heard of Lucky13 Beard Co., well, you haven't joined us for very many podcasts because they've been a sponsor for a very long time. And normally they make you feel good, smell good, and, they make your beard feel the best it possibly can. But we've teamed up with Ed and the guys over at Lucky13, and we've collaborated on a beard oil that we just simply like to call Lemmy, because it's inspired by Lemmy from Motorhead, and we took the essence of what was Lemmy and boiled it down to 4 things and got it somehow magically to fit into a bottle. So bourbon, cola, leather, and tobacco, all things that Lemmy loved and all things that Lemmy was. And, well, we're going to make you smell epic with this thing because it is by far the best smelling beard oil I've ever smelled. Not because it's ours, but because Ed and the guys over Lucky13, they threw it together. They said, here, what do you think? And they knocked it out of the park. So if you ever wanted to try beard oils in the past, we're giving you even more of a reason now, because when you go to Lucky13, the number, beardco.com, and then you click on products, the first thing on there is Lemmy. Give it a click, throw it in your cart, and put anything else in there that you want. And then when you check out, use the code EFP10, and we're going to give you 10% off of your entire order. So if you ever want to try beard oils or balms or anything else that Ed has got, and you've been curious, I don't know, it's kind of expensive, 10% off now, EFP10 at checkout. There's no reason not to give it a try. I guarantee you're going to like the way you feel. You're going to love the way you smell because you're going to be smelling epic. And, there's nothing better than that. Nothing better than feeling good, smelling good. The ladies are going to love it too.
All right, Matt. You're going to be surprised, but I'm going to ask if I can go first.
Sure.
I'm being selfish, I know. I know I should just give it away to you, but I'm not. I'm going to take it.
I'll let it go under the bridge. It's fine.
Oh, thanks, bud.
3, 2, 1 hot minute, go.
Okay, so while all 4 members sound amazing and even reinvigorated to a degree, this album definitely is not the great comeback many will probably be hoping for. Unlike Californication, this album doesn't find all 4 picking back up where they left off and just going full steam ahead into their glory days. Rather, and this is what makes it exciting, it sounds more like a private jam session where the band is just trying to reacquaint themselves with each other, just trying to find out if they can even be in the same room together and if there's still some magic there. And as a result, the band create what might be, while more sounding like for themselves and less with fans in mind, what could be their most intimate and vulnerable sounding album. And it makes it interesting, exciting just to hear them try to like figure out, like I said, like, can we actually be a band after everything? I mean, I think you could describe this album as the soundtrack to a long separated couple cautiously rekindling their love. I mean, the chemistry is undeniably there after all these years, but there's still a level of cautiousness amongst the parties involved because they remember the pain that they experienced when they last split. And so they're not just jumping into bed during the first date like they probably would have before. So, but what instead of them being like, "Ooh, I'm remembering the bad moments," you instead like get a sense of excitement from them. It's the nerves that you get from the first date, and it's instead of causing friction, it's like, "Oh, we're slowly getting there," and you feel the buildup with, and then when you each song, it's slowly them gaining confidence. Like, yeah, okay, we're getting there, and then you hear songs like the Heavy Wing and Bastards of Light, where they really finally go in for that big climatic kiss. It's You're watching two lovers, just lovers rekindling that relationship, and to see that story unfold into finally going to them going, yeah, we can do this. It's really makes it an enjoyable, fun listen. But then that leads into the issue there, though, is that it leads to a lack of songs that really stand out, or a lack of earworms, I should say. I mean, again, each member, they sound amazing. This is the most engaged I think I've heard Anthony sound in years. And of course, there's definitely intricate little moments from John that sprinkle throughout songs like It's Only Natural, These Are the Ways, and The Great Apes that just sound phenomenal. I'm like, oh, yeah, it is nice to hear John again. But I really have a hard time determining whether I could find myself revisiting these songs individually, or if Unlimited Love really is just an album I can enjoy as a full in the background for a moment of time. And I'm okay with that.
And time. Star rating out of 5.
3.5. Again, the performances, they are great. And it is exciting to see them. This is kind of weird to intersect here, but if you're watching the Hulu show Pam and Tommy, which chronicles the sex tape between Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson, there's a scene when the skeevy porn producer, played by Nick Offerman, who ends up watching the one of the tapes with the guy who stole it, is like, I feel like I'm not supposed to watch this. And that's what makes this so hot. And I kind of got that feeling from listening to this album. Like, I don't know if I'm actually really supposed to be listening to this, but there's something so intriguing about it. And it's like, again, it's like intimate sounding, but there's really no earworms here. There's really no Danny Californias. There's no Can't Stops. There's no Other Side that just really floored me. I was like, oh, wow, I am going to be, listening to this song over and over again for the, like, this song will be a moment that I remember for the rest of my life. It's just, and it's hard to compare. I mean, it's unfair to a certain degree to compare a band to their past work. But when you got a band like Chili Peppers, who really produced some outstanding songs and outstanding albums, you kind of have to compare. And I think Unlimited Love, it's not the comeback album you were hoping for, but I also would argue that it's gotten me excited for what could come. Unlike Iron Maiden and their last album, where it's like, oh, they're just doing this for themselves and it's just so bloated and it just kind of shows that they've lost direction. This is an album that's like, okay, we don't have the songs yet, but this really proved that we could. Like, we still have that fire. We just needed some time. And rightfully so. John left the band twice now. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Of course, there's going to be a little like concern getting into a room with him. They'd be fools for thinking it's going to be the same. So to hear them kind of get back on the same page, we still made this a really exciting, enjoyable album. I realize I probably just gave a second 2-minute review. Apologies, but like I said, one of my favorite bands. I definitely have a lot of opinions on it, and I'm sure we'll have some more later
Yep.
on. But first, Matt, are you ready?
Let's do it.
3, 2. I'll see you on the other side. 1, go.
So there is a very dangerous word that I don't like to use too often when I talk about album reviews or music really in general, but I feel it's appropriate here. That word is boring. This album, while it does sound technically proficient and it does sound crispy and clean with the production value, especially with Rick Rubin working on it, it just feels like this album is a slow train to nowhere. Because, yeah, John Frusciante and the chemistry musically with the band, all feelings aside and all of, the human emotions not thrown into this, the guitar work is fine. Flea's bass work is fine. Anthony sounds fine. Chad, fine. All the performances sound fine. However, the songs themselves aren't really anything special. The highlights of the album, you've already heard one of them in Black Summer. And then Here Ever After really is one of the only other highlights that I can really throw out there from this album. They really get a lot of light and ballady tunes on here, including Not the One, Bastards of Light, and then Tangelo to close out the album, which really isn't, I guess, a full song. It's kind of like an outro, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway. I mean, there are other moments on the album, but they are forgettable moments on other great albums like Stadium Arcadium and maybe Californication in songs like Aquatic Mouth Dance, One Way Traffic, Let 'Em Cry. And not to say that there's not like great pieces on here, like John Frusciante's work on Let 'Em Cry is great. But it's just not anything in the grand scheme of the Chili Peppers. It's like, well, they can do so much better, and you know this. And then so many times do they feel like they're getting to that point where they're going to do something great, and then it just really kind of drops off a cliff with songs like Poster Child, The Great Apes, and Heavy Wing. And it's really discouraging from the way that the Chili Peppers talked about bringing John back and the way that they hyped up the album. It really feels like the Chili Peppers are still struggling to find themselves.
Wow. I was not expecting that, but out of 5 stars, what's your ranking?
2.5.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
really I mean, it's funny. I get what you're saying. I guess I was in the less boring group, but it's forgettable, I think is a good, I struggle to determine whether or not this is forgettable, but you really were not as smitten with this.
No, I really found myself going back between two different albums, The Getaway and By the Way. And
Mm.
I say The Getaway because The Getaway to me was also kind of boring. It wasn't really the Chili Peppers being the Chili Peppers. They were on the lighter side again, and the songs just weren't hooky and they weren't catchy or as funky as they could be. And then By the Way, it's a great album, but they go very light on certain songs and they go very, I don't want to, I guess they go atmospheric on kind of both albums, By the Way and The Getaway. And I kind of found myself getting back into this mindset of like, why is this reminding me of the Zephyr song? And it's not really sounding like it. It's just that atmospheric Chili Pepper sound. And I found myself way too many times going for that when I was expecting, something really like funky and dirty from Flea and John just killing it on guitar like when they play can't stop
I mean, that's a good,
around the
I
like
still
like
saying that's a good example though. It's a good
right.
song.
I mean, like Around the World, that song, I was expecting to get maybe something like that, like to show the fires back. I love Black Summer. Let's not get it twisted. That's a great song. I love that. And I love the feeling that they give on that. But there is nothing on here that rivals classic Chili Peppers. There's nothing on here that shows us a new direction for the Chili Peppers. Or maybe we did get the new direction of the Chili Peppers on The Getaway. It just felt like you could have had this as a B-side almost to The Getaway. But then again, you had Josh who was in the band at that point, and obviously with John back, you can't have that. So,
So, if I may though, real quick,
mhm.
because you brought up Josh's name, I'm gonna make a bold statement here. I'm ecstatic that John's back, but Josh Klinghoffer got a raw deal. So first, I'm With You was not a great album. Anthony and Chad clearly phoned it in. Flea was like kind of semi into it. And But Josh got the raw end of the deal because he was clearly told, "Hey, you've kind of shadowed John on Stadium Arcadium tour for a while. You've jammed with him a while. We want you to be John in the studio. Like we want you to like think what would John do approaching these songs." And he played the role, and he did a damn good job with some those songs too. Like I actually think The Getaway is a good album. Forgettable, but I remember liking it when I first heard it, and I think it kind of stinks for him because out of all the members of the Chili Peppers, he was probably the only one that really actually showed up to play during his tenure. Chad finally got back into interest during The Getaway, but Anthony, ever since Frusciante left, you can just tell his heart had not been in the songs.
And see, I'm on the complete opposite side of the fence. I thought "I'm With You" was pretty good. I like that.
I thought it was boring and just
Yeah.
it just lacked any energy that they had from Stadium Arcadium. I thought it was just
very different type of album than Stadium Arcadium, and I'll give you that. But I mean, like Monarchy of Roses, Factory of Faith. I love Adventures of Rain Dance, Maggie. Did I Let You Know? I love that song.
To me, Flea and Josh were fine, and Chad was just not really into it. I just thought that was an album that had some moments, but really it was like, all right, we just need to kind of get an album out so we can start touring.
And that's
and
what
the
I
Getaway
felt like
was kind of, and The Getaway was kind of similar, but I thought there was a little bit more thought from at least Flea on that album, whereas Anthony again just phoned it in.
I don't know. Dark Necessities killed me. I
like that song. I thought that was a darker version of Can't Stop. That was a more dancey version of Can't Stop, and I think it's you mentioned, by the way, I remember at the time that came out, I was a little taken aback by how much softer it was compared to Californication. But that's an album that literally I grew with it. I was like, oh wow, no, this really is a brilliant album. And that's an album that really found John shining more, not just on guitar, but just with the backing vocals and just the overall music. Which is why I'm still unsure whether I will be still listening to this album in 3 months' time. Because right now I enjoy having it on in the background. Right now, I appreciate it for what it is. Because I guess it's funny because you mentioned about Black Summer. I wasn't so into Black Summer at first. I love it now, but it took me a while to really get into it. There are some songs on this album, like, oh, I don't know. And then like I listen to it again, I'm like, you know what? No, I've noticed this element. I noticed that one. So it might be a grower. It might not be. It might just be like The Getaway, where it's like, oh, that was interesting, and then I just forgot about it. But I didn't expect the fire there. I don't know. Maybe just because knowing the band's history, I kind of knew going into it that like it would be really tough. It would be amazing if they caught it, but I was like, what would you have expected after all that history?
Well, I mean, think about it. If what you're saying is anywhere near correct with, the theory of, the band wasn't the same after he left and they did "I'm With You" and The Getaway, and now he's back. Well, now that he's back, shouldn't you have unlocked like the next level of this band, and they should have, just gone full steam ahead because everything that they were missing is now back. And
That's fair.
I don't feel that they really thought about, okay, John's back. This is great. What the hell do we do? It feels like you said, like a jam session. It feels like they got in there and they started playing, and like, oh, this turned into a song. And this is very kind of reminiscent of you and I reliving some kind of monster in Metallica's documentary. It almost kind of feels like they're in there kind of being cathartic about this playing because we're in here, we want to go through this together, we want to put this album together and do it in a different way than we ever have before. And it just so happens that the band that's in the studio right now is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it's like, well, I've got nothing. Do you have something? No. All right, well, start playing something. We'll figure it out as we go. And that's kind of what this felt like. I think, not that I think, I know the Chili Peppers can do so much better than this. And I'm hoping what you're saying is true, that the next time that, they're going to be less cautious and take the training wheels off and just go for it, because this definitely felt like you put the helmets on, the elbow pads, the knee pads, the shoulder pads, you got the mouth guard in, you got a full face guard on. Like, okay, we're holding back to the extreme here. We don't want to get hurt, but we want to do something.
I love that you mentioned some kind of monster, because as I was listening to it, and the idea of cathodic also came up. I'm like, it's really ironic because we had just not too long ago, we appeared on our friend Daniel's podcast, Far Beyond Metal, where we all three of us revisited some kind of monster, Metallica's infamous documentary, and just kind of shared what it was like to rewatch it again. Was there anything that we, that how has it aged? And literally, as I'm listening, I'm like, like I was like thinking about the whole like, oh, this is like an intimate jam session, them trying to rekindle. I'm like, that's ironic. It is kind of like this is their way of doing some kind of monster, just about a therapist and cameras to film it, or maybe they did film it. Who knows? But I'm glad that you were. I was like, also like, is that a stretch? And I'm glad you thought of that as well, because that is like, that's really ironic timing wise.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that the moment I heard you say that they're holding back, or that they're being careful, that's immediately where my head went with James coming back from rehab in the documentary.
Well, we all know the truth. Our opinions don't really matter.
Well, look around,
So tell me, baby, what was my time?
Well, as the story goes, you clocked in at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I wish I could say I was surprised by that one. So what you're saying, Matt, is that we should change the show to 3 minutes to review.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, well, I tried. But you know what, Matt? You only did a slightly bit better. You came in at 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
There's so much to say, but I managed to say it faster, even if I still lost.
We want to hear from you. Do you agree with our thoughts? Do you think that, or do you disagree? Do you think that this was an incredible album that made you go, hell yes, thank God John's back in Red Hot Chili Peppers? Or do you feel that this was disappointing and that there could have been so much more with Unlimited Love? Let us know what you think of Red Hot Chili Peppers' Unlimited Love on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more podcasts like this, including, as I mentioned before, our past album review of Californication, as well as a slew of other, I don't even know how many times we've talked about the Red Hot Chili Peppers in our episodes. Maybe a fun little game to play. Go ahead, check it out. And also, once again, thank you to Lucky13 Beard Co. Go to Lucky13beardco.com right now. Use the code EFB10 at checkout on your order of amazing, great smelling beard oil products, including our own Lemmy-inspired beard oil. Also, massive thank you to Rootless Coffee. They're based out of Flint, Michigan. They really produce some incredible coffee blends, and they also collaborate with a lot of cool comic book artists, podcasters, charities, even wrestlers, including AEW's very own Dan Housen. Very spooky, very evil Dan Housen has worked with them on a lot of different blends. Check it out. Go to rootlesskoffee.com and use the code EPICROAST to get 15% off your order. You can't beat that. Thank you all so much for listening and for putting up with our bad Red Hot Chili Pepper puns throughout the episode. Hope you join us for another episode real soon.
See ya.